I'll get started. Thanks for joining me. Today's the first day of a series of podcasts that I thought I'd make about cycling in Sydney. And today I wanted to hold a cargo bike Confer because a lot of people stop me on the street and ask me about the Nihola that I ride, and my husband also, who rides a Yubamando, which is a long-tail cargo bike. And what I thought I'd do, just the format today, is I'll just go through a little presentation that I put together of how we actually use a cargo bike, and then I thought I'd open it up for questions. So what I'll do is I'll put the presentation up, and I'll go through that first. All right. Just bear with me a second. Okay, let me see if I can fiddle with this. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. And I'll put it on slideshow. Okay, so what I thought I'd talk about is how we use our cargo bikes. Maybe it's not up. Let's see. Just bear with me a second. Okay, I'll put the screen share up. Okay, I've lost my presentation. All right, there we go. Okay, we'll try it again. There we go. Okay, so basically how we use cargo bikes. So we use them to transport kids, for shopping, transporting stuff, basically for everything, and how we deal with the rain, and our various bikes that we've used. Secondly, then I'll talk about how the Nihola is to ride and how it handles. Thirdly, the necessity of electric motor boost here in Sydney, the range of the Nihola, how far we can actually go, and any issues that we might have. And then there'll be some time for questions and comments. So to kick off, basically, this is the Nihola day one. We picked it up from Glowworm after they'd installed the electric motor boost. And Julius is about 7 months old. He's in a Weber baby capsule, and Ophelia's about 4.5. And we're just going around doing a bit of practice because I'd never ridden anything like this before. And very quickly, we found it indispensable. So how do we use our cargo bikes? Well, so basically, I use the Nihola, and I use it for shopping and carrying kids. The thing that you notice when kids get older is that they get bigger, and your ability to carry as much as you remember is slightly hampered. But even still, I can carry a week's worth of groceries with kid and Nihola. An even larger kid, this is Ophelia, can also fit with a week of groceries, and then of course they can help to unload. Transporting kids to lunch on the weekend is pretty easy, and I generally carry 2 kids, but 1 at a time works pretty well too. The cargo bikes basically help us to carry a lot of things. So my husband here has his Yubamando, and he's transporting two bicycles on the back of his long tail. And then there are things like cargo bike races, and generally speaking, if you decide to enter a cargo bike race with kids, you know, fully loaded with gear, you're set. In this case, I didn't win. I was just competing against one other person. I think it's the Christmas presents that we had in the cabin that just weighed us down. And so we use the cargo bikes in place of cars all the time. Here we're in Melbourne, and we're going to a cyclocross race, which is about 18 kilometers away from Fitzroy North. So it was a great choice because the kids stayed warm and dry, and my husband was warmed up by the time we arrived. And my son won his bounce bike rate despite a little bit of intimidation from the bigger kids, and my daughter took first place for the girls. So it was a great way for all of us to get warmed up. And also in this case, I'm riding an Urban Arrow in Melbourne. It was really useful for transporting our bags because I mistakenly understood the checkout time to be later than it actually was, and we had to quickly move our things to our friend Steve's house. And so you can see basically the blue case is a case from my husband's special Speedwagon bike, and behind that is a suitcase for the weekend. And both fit very comfortably into the Urban Arrow. And also the weight, you can carry about 90 kilos in there. So back to everyday life in Sydney. Inevitably, if it starts to rain, the cover keeps everything and everyone dry. Of course, you're out shopping and it starts raining. The rain cover that we have is custom made by Nihola, and it's very effective for keeping the kids dry. It comes in lots of different colors. I chose pink camouflage for visibility, which is kind of ironic. And when it rains here in Sydney, it of course contributes to the congestion on the roads. So most of it we avoid, and in this case, we're on the shared bicycle and pedestrian way on our way to childcare. My husband deals pretty well with the rain and the ubamundo, so the kids wear their raincoats, and in this case, I made a rain skirt for my son to keep his legs dry. My husband has a nice raincoat, and they're off to childcare. And again, parking no issue. We just pull up right to the front gate of childcare, for example. And also no parking issues. After going grocery shopping on Oxford Street, there's very limited parking, I think, as everyone knows. And what we do is we just lock up very close and then load up. And there's even opportunity to catch my son doing the nose pick. We can also take friends and bicycles and scooters along. So one seat has a 5-point harness, and then there's a larger seat belt that keeps them both strapped in. So a lot of people ask me what the Nihola is like to ride, and how does it handle? So basically the lean here is really important. So in this photo, you can see I'm turning right onto Pitt Street from Park. What's important to remember is that you're actually on 3 wheels. So if you lean over too much into your turn, you'll basically end up on 2 wheels, which I've done before, and you just lean the other direction and the wheel goes back down. But what I do is I keep my body weight on top of the seat to counterbalance. The top of my body is leaning because of gravity, but my weight is centered. Again, this is less of a problem with heavy loads and with 2 kids. And we also have an electric motor boost installed because Sydney is very hilly, and we need to get to where we want to go quickly and safely. So here we're going along pretty fast on Kent Street. As you can see, kind of tootling along. And this is a really great cycleway that's dedicated for us bicyclists. And this is the very steep road that's behind St. Mary's Cathedral. And basically, I have 1 child, so we're ascending pretty fast. And I am on the cycleway because I am accompanying a child who's under 12. If I have 2 kids, I basically need to stand up midway. It would be impossible to go up this hill without the electric motor boost. And again, the point of a bicycle is that you want to ride it as much as possible. And unfortunately, if it's very difficult, then you won't use it. So that's why we've decided to put the electric motor boost in. So you can see here also that body position is also very important for comfort and riding. I personally find it more comfortable to be more upright, to have an upright stance. And I like the Nihola a lot for that reason. And, there are days when it rains and stops and rains and stops. And so we can ride with the cover half open. If it's windy, it's better to close the cover, as, you can see here that the wind can basically be caught in the half open cover, and then you can basically makes it really difficult to ride. Okay, so things to remember when going downhill is that basically your mass is much greater. So you will go faster, and what I do is I keep my hands on the brakes at all times. So I cover my brakes, it's called, and I have firm yet flexible arms to basically take any bumps on the road. And the other reason why we installed the electric motor boost here in inner city Sydney is because it's so hilly, and this is Riley Street, which is basically an extremely steep hill to get up. And again, it just makes it a lot easier. And people say to us things like, how far can you go? But the question is then how much do you want to pedal? Because basically the electric motor boost gives you, as much exercise as walking, except of course it extends your range. So people are always asking us, what's the range of the Nihola? This depends on the battery power, and we have 2 batteries, and they both have a range of about 70K. And, so again, one battery takes us 70K. We have 2 batteries. On this particular trip, we're actually going to Cabramatta, and we ran out of battery power about 8 kilometers from home. So I had to ask our daughter to walk with a friend while I pedaled, because there were a few hills. So of course this is a bit extreme. So, you know, what's more normal is that we have a journey. We had a journey recently where it was a kid's birthday. They both have the same birthday on the 18th of April. And it's a very special day. So we went from Surrey Hills to the cinema, the entertainment quarter, and then to lunch at Walsh Bay, which is, you know, further up Kent Street. And then we came home and then changed batteries and then picked up figure skates, ice skates for the kids, to go to an ice skating facility in Alexandria. And of course, then it started to pour with rain on the way back to Sydney. Back to Surrey Hills, where we had dinner. So that was about a 50-kilometer day for me. And, you know, that's totally reasonable. And of course, then I enjoyed my pizza and a glass of wine that night enormously. So in terms of issues with the Nihola, you know, we've had nothing significant. All the parts are very standard, and we get the Nihola serviced every 6 months to prevent any problems. We keep the tires well inflated, and my husband installed a chain keeper. Sometimes the chain falls off, chain ring, which is probably because of the force of the electric motor. So once, in this particular occasion, someone's dog ran in front of us and I had to brake really quickly. So the brake cable for the front brakes snapped. I think they were not quite well adjusted. And I had to basically ride home slowly with just a back brake, but that was fine. It was not an issue. I just had to adapt my style of riding. And then we went to Omafeets and they fixed it without any problem. So that is very broadly how we use the Nihola. I am going to open it up for questions then. And let's see. Hi, Emmy. I think what you can do is you can actually write questions down. Let me see if I can. Do anything to aid. Let's see. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for me? Let's see. So this is the first time I've ever used this function. Let me see if I can make it possible for everybody to ask questions. Okay, I put the chat on, and I'll just put something here. And I can, I guess, talk about the questions that you might have. And also, this broadcast will be recorded, and it will be available on YouTube a little bit later this afternoon. So, okay, I don't see any questions. Let me see if I can facilitate anything else. Okay. Well, then maybe that's it for today. I'll just see if I can. do anything else. So how do I feel about safety in Sydney? Oh, thank you. Thank you for a question. So safety in Sydney is a really good question because I think everybody is very aware of the New South Wales government's stance on cycling, which is not exactly positive. So the approach that I take is that I basically use roads that are not very, very busy. So for example, I used to take College Street Cycleway, but it's gone now. So what I do is I'll go in the back roads through Darlinghurst, and I'll cross Oxford Street, and I will basically go out of my way to be safe. And so it might take me a little bit longer, but we're not so far away from the city in Surrey Hills, and I will be very conscious of taking a road that is not like a through road. I don't take College Street anymore, for example. George Street, when it was open to traffic, I never took it. Very, very rare instances. But another way that I like to get into the city is via Pitt Street. In terms of the way that people treat me on the road, people generally, when I have the kids, are very respectful. I've had very minor incidents with taxi cab drivers who, of course, have said things like you're a bad mother, but I'm never going to see that person again. It's okay. And generally people are very respectful, especially when there are kids in the cabin. I did have one incident where there was a gelato truck driver who cut me off and said I should get off the road and get to the left and all of that. And the kids, I had both of them in the cabin with me, and we were going to school. And what happened was he basically got really, really close and started shouting. So I took some pictures and I called up the gelato company, and someone else had actually, a pedestrian had actually called as well to complain about that particular driver. And I ended up speaking with the managing director of that company, and they said that they would re-educate the drivers because things had changed obviously in the inner city since before. This was about 3 years ago when this happened. That was probably the most extreme circumstance. In terms of safety, we're all wearing helmets as is required, and I do generally feel quite safe because of, again, the choices that I make to take specific roads that are quieter. Yeah, that's how I feel about safety. Thank you. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have. It's a new format, this Google Hangouts. I think something that a lot of people ask me as well is, how do you manage? How do I manage my helmet? Because very good question from Tamara. I get stopped a lot is the honest answer. There was one week that I was stopped 3 times, and that was just terrible. So what usually happens is I'm going along on the bicycle, either with the kids in the cargo or just by myself on the bicycle. And a couple of times they've turned the sirens on, like I'm a criminal. And one time I was shouted at by the policeman to pull over. And so I pull over, and my helmet now, it has a sticker. I'll just leave it at that. It has a sticker. It is legal in the US, the UK, and Europe. And I don't think that the Australian head is that different from the heads that live in the US, UK, and Europe. So my helmet has a sticker. And when the police come over and they say, oh, you're not wearing your helmet, I say, no, yes, I am. I take it off and I show them, turn it over upside down. And they usually say things like, oh, I didn't know that was a helmet. And generally speaking, they've been really nice about it. Usually when the police smile, that's a good sign. Everything's fine. And yeah, I've had the policemen on the motorcycles stop and ask me, and I say, yeah, it's a helmet, and show them the strap. And I smile at them, and they say, oh, I really like your helmet. And then I've said, I really like yours too. And then they smile. Everything's fine. So that's how the police react to my helmet. They don't know what it is, and I have to be very patient and explain it to them. Good question. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm just trying to think. What else? What else do people ask me? Yeah, the kids love the tricycle. Although now my daughter, she's 9. They complain a little bit, especially if they have to sit for a while. I think their range is about 30K. After that, they tend to start to complain that their legs hurt and they're getting bored. But it's not a bored like as in a car. It's more just because their bottoms start to hurt. And once on the trip to Cabramatta, you know, it was a long trip and we started at 8 in the morning. I basically made snacks and water and that kind of thing, and brought all of that along, and they had a great time because they got to eat and drink along the way, while the rest of us, it was a nice group of us in Sydney X-Rides, another great group, which encourages people to cycle for every day and just to get around to learn about more things in Sydney. Yeah, everybody commented that the kids had it really easy, but I think that's the mom service, I guess, that I provide for my kids. And I think also that they've actually become very used to cycling in that way because they see everything around them, and they are not bored for that reason. Whereas in the car, they get tired about 20 minutes in and they're not interested anymore. They say, we're done with the car, can we get out? And of course, that's not the case. So the kids really enjoy it. I think because my son also, he's been in it since he was about 7 months old. He's just very used to it, and that's all he knows pretty much. So he's very enthusiastic about riding his own bicycle, as is our daughter. So does anyone have any other questions at the moment? Thank you very much for coming. I'll ask again, any more questions? And with that, I'll say thank you. Thanks for coming, and thanks for listening and your questions as well. And I'll see you soon. I'm going to try to do these kind of podcasts every month. If you have any suggestions of things that you might be interested in hearing about, with regards to everyday cycling, and you've seen me on a lot of social media, so Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, let me know in either of those medium, and speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.